Pretty darn awesome. So you are joining us with the House Hunting and Hacking, Unlocking the Power of Real Estate Together. We meet on the second and fourth Tuesdays at 7 p.m. We'd love to get to know you guys more and to help you on your journey to obtaining great real estate. We've got with us Genevieve Henderson, of course, who is going to be speaking with us this evening. We've got a fantastic realtor on our team, John Nichols, and myself, Amber Zamudio, who will be your insurance specialist. Tonight's topic I'm very excited about because I'm sure we've all heard so many different things about the interest rates and the housing markets and financing and all of those things. And we're so lucky to have Genevieve talk to us tonight about the whole mortgage portion. So we're talking about from challenge to opportunity, profiting in a high interest mortgage market. Last week, just as a recap, last week I spoke to the group about ensuring your financial investments. And prior to that, John was able to share with us his insight on how he got into real estate and the process behind that. So we're excited to be on this journey with you guys. Please let us know how we can help you, and I'll leave it to Jen.
All right. And hopefully everybody can hear me. Yay.
Yes.
I'm going to try to share my screen here. I think that one is it. And let's see if it will let me do PowerPoint.
Okay. She's doing.
Now it changes it up here. Hold on a second. It's got this bar that blocks it. Here we go. Okay. You guys seeing my screen?
Yeah.
Is it the PowerPoint version? No, it's not. Let's see.
It was showing with notes.
Yeah, let's see. Make it bigger for you guys because there's a lot of information on here that I want to cover with graphs and stuff. And so I want you to be able to let's see if I can flip it to one. There we go. Does that work?
Perfect. Yay.
All right. So from the challenge to opportunity and profiting in a high interest mortgage market. So I'm sure you've heard over the last year and a half, at least, that rates have been going up. And I look at this stuff and I deal with this stuff every single day. So we're going to talk about this challenge first. But I am Genevieve Henderson. I am a senior mortgage loan officer at American Pacific Mortgage. And I have a history background of, I went to the University of Texas at Dallas. I got a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. And then I used that degree to work as a paralegal in various legal fields for about 8 years, if you were to try to put it all together, which gives me a lot that actually really helps me in what I do now, because I'm able to argue with underwriters and whatnot on technicalities of underwriting guidelines. So that's actually really helped me having that kind of background. And then I've been licensed as a mortgage loan officer for 5.5 years. And I'm going stronger. Here we go. So rates in the past. Here we have going back to April of 2009. As you can see where we're currently at on the far right side of that graph. I mean, an astronomical ascent in rates. I mean, it's unreal given what we've had since 2009. So that is very much a challenge. As you can see here at the bottom, there's a legend and it shows you there's a 30-year fixed, a 15-year fix, and you can see how those kind of change over time. One of the big things that a lot of people talk about, since rates have been shooting up, they talk a lot about doing an ARM, an adjustable rate mortgage. And if you'll notice, like, we haven't really, people have thought that that would be like a good alternative. And in some markets that has been the case, but lately, if you notice, this gray line, which represents the ARM, the adjustable rate mortgage, it follows very closely to the 30-year fix. And you're going to see that here. This is a closer look at what's been going on basically since the start of 2023. You can see that, you know, the gray line follows really close with the 30-year fixed line. So in some cases, it's like, well, yes, we could do an adjustable rate mortgage, but at the cost of, like, when it's basically the same to do a fixed, why would you take on the risk of an adjustable rate mortgage if they're so similar? Here, it was actually higher during these months. So definitely wouldn't want to do an ARM there when your 30-year fixed rate is lower than the ARM. And then you can see here right now, there's an advantage to doing a 15-year fixed if you're able to qualify for that. So, but yeah, it's been going higher. As you can see, we had a pitch recently. And so given that this is the current state of things, and we don't know, we don't have crystal balls, we don't know when things are coming down. But this is what we do look at for the future. So there's something called Fed futures. And when the Feds increase the interest rates, we actually, from a mortgage and lending standpoint, we know about it in advance because we are listening to this stuff every single day. They create the rates and pricing based off of this. So this is actually, this is a snapshot of what they're looking at for the July 26th Fed meeting. You can see here that our current target rate right now is at the 500 to 525 mark. And that this column here on the right, this giant column with a 92.4% a percentage on it, that is the market's thinking what the Fed's going to do. That we will go from a 500 to 525 range to a 525 to 550 range. That they will be increasing the rate by 1/4 of a point, and that 92.4% of the market believes this. So this is what's coming up July 26th. When you hear it in the news and they say, wow, look what happened. We've already been pricing this in for months. So don't think that once that happens, oh, bam, you know, like today, well, now now the rate just went up. Now is a bad time. That's not the case. We've been pricing it for months. And here we go again. This is the September meeting. This is how people are feeling about September, that we still have, as of right now in this moment, we still have the 500 to 525 range, and that the probability of the 525 to 550 is a 70.3. They think the greatest possibility is that we will still be at the 525 to 550 range, which is what we had here. So most people are thinking that in September that the Fed's going to pause, and that 24% of people think that they're going to do another 1/4 point hike in September. As that column on the right, as that gets bigger and the middle one lowers, rates are going to start shooting up. Now, tomorrow is a big day. There's an inflation report coming out tomorrow called the CPI, and they're going to be watching that to see, you know, do the Feds like what they're seeing with that CPI inflation report? Because if they don't, and it further talks about that the Feds are going to be increasing rates again, you're going to see these columns basically switch in weight, and we'll have another potential increase in September. Now here we've got the November meeting, and as you can see in the November meeting, actually decreases. People are thinking, they don't know this far out what's going to happen. 45% thinks we'll still be at the 525 to 550 range. So these are things that we watch, that lenders and investors watch to set the rates and pricing. And they're looking months out. These are generally 30-year mortgages that we're talking about. So looking at the long end game is really important. Here we go. Here's another big challenge is the housing supply market factor. As some of you, if you're into the real estate marketing, the real estate meetings and such, they talk about this a lot, but for those of you who haven't seen it, this is why we have one of the reasons it's been going on for many, many years. Since 2008, basically, they were overbuilding in 2008. That's why we had the opposite problem of what we have now. We had the problem of too much supply, not enough demand. And that's what caused the housing market collapse in 2008. But since that time, and they stopped building, we have this giant deficit. And that's, I mean, it's just like a Grand Canyon here of not making enough new builds. And when houses, like in the Marshall fire that happened, and we lost all those homes, guess what? That just made that area even harder to purchase in. We've got years, decades behind in supply. So there's that issue. The next issue is the lock-in effect. And this basically has happened since COVID and the amazing rates that we saw. So we have the US mortgage borrowers, 96.3% of them have a mortgage rate that is below 6%, and they're not willing to give it up. And then the result is we have the fewest US home sales for sale since 2012 is what that creates. Because people who now have these amazing rates of 3%, 4%, they're not going to give them up. They're going to hold on to that house much longer than they normally would have. And even when they do decide to give their house up, for the first time ever, they're going to actually consider becoming a landlord. Because, well, that makes sense. We can make more money than what our mortgage even costs. And those people will be paying that mortgage for us while it appreciates. So if you look at this graph, I mean, I'm thinking like, well, if I had a 3%, if I had a 4%, you know, I wouldn't be giving it up. What is that? Like 70% of the market of existing homes. They're not going to want to be giving up those mortgages. It makes no sense to do that. So this is going to create a further problem with the supply in the housing market that's further going to create a problem and a challenge for buyers. But when you have a lack of supply, then what does that do? That also creates appreciation. The median house price since 1963, you can see down here, boy, would I have loved to have gotten a house at that time. You even see here, there's the biggest gray bar. That's the housing crisis. But even let's say you hit this little point right here, which was probably in, I would guess, at the pinnacle of probably 2006. If you kept it, what happened when you hit about 2012, 2013? You recovered and it kept going up. And now it's shot up like big time, because not only did we have the issue of people not selling their homes because they've got amazing rates, but we had a lack of supply on the market. So, I mean, just basically, if you think about it, think of it as like there's a bar on the left and it's time, and it's going across this from left to right, and you just gotta like lock it in. I mean, lock it in as soon as you can on the left-hand side, as far as you're able to make it in time, the earliest and the soonest possible that you can qualify, lock it in, because we all know where this is headed, because I've just told you what's happening with the rates that people are going to have for the next 30 years that they locked in 2020 and 2021. You will probably never see again. So here is in a year with the interest rates soared, which is historically when the housing market and appreciation slows down. The national appreciation levels for 2022 were an average of 6%. So you can see here in Denver, 7.8%. This is what happened in 2022. When, according to normal market things, when you've got those high rates, that would really dampen appreciation. But look what it did, because we have such a supply issue. That's what happened. And now I was listening to this morning, the predictions for the market for 2023 is to see that we're on pace for a 5 to 10% appreciation in home prices. So, you know, all the stupid little YouTube guys out there that are trying to like get views, and I swear they must be making bank on those, because they keep saying that there's a housing bubble. Watch my video, I'm going to tell you how. I mean, you know, they keep saying the end of times, where is it? And I think that I can only think that it's because they get clicks and views, because it makes no sense if you look at supply and demand. So, here we go with like trying to time this. The odds that you will achieve long-term success by actively trading or timing the market round to 0. This comes from Morgan Housel, who is a former columnist for the Wall Street Journal and works for the Collaborative Fund. Okay, so these are people who like do this, watch stocks, everything, try to time markets for a living. They're professionals. And you think like, oh, on your little side job that you're going to try to time the market for when you buy your house, and yet you don't actually work in the real estate market. Like, I don't know if I'd be making my biggest financial investment, you know, by trying to time it when I'm not an actual expert. And even the experts question themselves. So here we go, trying to anticipate any market's ups and downs can be a costly and futile exercise. William McNabb, who's the former chairman and chief executive of Vanguard. And the only problem with market timing is getting the timing right. Who's Peter Lynch, world-renowned American investor. So even they recognize, as professionals, it's next to impossible. But here's your opportunity. There is something good here. With these recent increase that we've been seeing in the interest rates, there's actually been a drop in applications. This is one that I came across, an article, so I decided to put it in here, and that applications fell 4.4% from the prior week because people are getting scared in being able to qualify for these. John just had one that they had to walk away from a contract because the interest rate shot up, and their lender that they were working with, who was not me, did not lock them as soon as they went under contract. So he floated them, and then they pulled out of the contract. That is an opportunity for those of us who do qualify. If you do qualify, they're seeing a 4.4 decrease in demand is what that tells you right there. So this is an opportunity. The cost of waiting. Whether you are a home buyer or an investor, the cost of waiting is costly and usually far more than most even understand. When you consider that the multi-decade trend of housing is a consistent pattern of upward trending in price and appreciation, this consistent trend shows that those who purchased earlier and held on to that investment, they banked every time. I just showed you that chart earlier. It was a consistent trend. This is not looking at the stock market. What is it? Roller coaster up and down. No, this is a consistent trend of going up. Yes, there's little bumps in the road. But the people who even went through 2008 housing crisis, they're banking now. Potential buyers many times think that they will wait for better rates, lower prices, or to save more money for the purchase. They generally think that they will be out the cost of the appreciation of the home. They fail to see that not only will they need to pay more for the same home, they lost on the appreciation of that home. A $20,000 increase in price is also a $20,000 loss of appreciation for that buyer that chose to wait. A $400,000 home appreciating at the average 5% in the Denver area creates a $40,000 loss in 1 year for a buyer that chose to wait. For renters, this doesn't even account for the rent they threw out the window. So if you can wrap your head around that increase in appreciation, that could have been yours. It should have been yours if you qualified back for it. So that's $20,000 that they lost out on. And now they have to come up with another $20,000. That is a $40,000 loss in just 1 year of waiting. And so when it comes to renters, this is my face. This is my face when someone complains about a 7% interest rate, but their rent is 100%. You know, like perspective. Perspective is important. And so here we go with more opportunities. These are ideas. This is a temporary rate buy down. So for primary home purchasers, this is a way to get around the high interest rate mortgage market. You still have to qualify for the higher rate. So this doesn't negate that. However, it does make the rate more comfortable for you. There's the options of the temporary buy downs of a 1-0, and this is a flyer for the 1-0. The 1-0 is the cheapest. So this is basically where when you go under contract, you can ask ahead of time when you go under contract for the seller to pay for this. The seller has to pay for this because it's literally a calculation of the interest. In the 1-0 scenario, it's 1%. It's a 1% discount for the first year. So instead of like these rates, and these are, sorry, it's an old flyer. So yeah, we don't have 5.25 or 6.25, but they locked a 6.25. And so for the first year, that gets discounted to a 5.25. And that's a savings on this particular loan amount, which is a $300,000 purchase with 10% down. It's a monthly savings of $171 a month. So in this scenario, this is something that you would ask the seller to pay for. They have to pay for it down to the cent, but it literally is put into the contract when you're under contract on a purchase. And it gives you a discount. So the 1-0 is 1% off the first year. After the first year, it goes to the full rate that was locked in for the 30 years. The beauty of this is whatever that amount is that the seller paid for in this situation of doing a temporary buy down, this money is not lost. If you were to refinance before the year was over and there was money left over, it would actually go towards the balance that you owe on your mortgage when you do the refinance. So you wouldn't lose any of this money, especially which is more realistic if you're looking at the 2-1 or the 3-2-1, which are much more pricey in doing these temporary buy downs. The money that's put into this subsidy account that the seller pays for, you would not lose any of the money that's going into this account. It would be applied when you do your refinance. So I did a purchase in Texas with a coworker who's licensed in Texas, in Bryan, Texas. And the homeowner did this scenario. And so now she's got a comfortable payment for a couple of years as she adjusts to being a homeowner. So, so this is a great hack for primary homeowners. Again, primary only. It doesn't work for second homes, and it doesn't work for investment. You can utilize it with conventional, FHA, or a VA loan. And it's only on our retail side. If I have to broker, the loan out for any reason, it doesn't necessarily, it's not offered by the other investors necessarily. But with our retail line, it does work. For investors using a conventional loan, 75% of the potential rental income as determined by the appraiser, what that rental income can be, It can be used to offset the housing expense you're applying for. So if you want to get to investing, this is what you're typically looking at if you're doing a conventional loan, is that I'll use 75% of that potential rental income that we get from the appraiser to help you qualify for it. So you're not applying for the full 100%, oh, got my first mortgage and now I've got to apply for a second mortgage completely on my own. That's not the case when you're doing a conventional loan for an investment purchase. And so here we have an example. We are closing on Friday. Amber is our insurance girl on this lovely fourplex. John is our realtor who found it and got it under contract. And our buyer is putting 25% down. He's utilizing his savings and he's using a HELOC that I advised him to get. He's using that HELOC on his primary home as his new safety net. That way he feels more comfortable spending what he's been saving up to get into real estate. And his monthly mortgage payment on this fourplex is going to be about $2,663.03. His monthly rental income that John is predicting is possible with these is $900 a unit. No, this is not in the Denver area because I know what some of you guys are thinking. Where can you get $900 a unit? But it is in Colorado. It's just a little further out. But yeah, $900 a unit, which is a monthly rental income of $3,600. So his net income on this is $936.97 a month. So not only are they going to be making that monthly mortgage payment for him, he gets an additional $936 a month. And then when he refinances this to a better rate in the future, hopefully near future at some point, he'll be making a better rate of return on this. So we're so happy and excited for him and glad that we were all able to pitch in as a team and get this one done. For the investors using a DSCR, this is a talked about type of loan in the investment world for real estate. A DSCR loan is also broken down as a debt service coverage ratio loan, and the investor's income can be ignored. And the potential rental income of the property is used to qualify the investor and the loan. So this is a DSCR summary here of some of the types of things that we can provide in this product. It can go up to 2 million, up to 80% loan to value. That means 20% down. There's a purchase or rate in terms. You can also be refinanced using this product. They even have interest only options where you can still, eventually you can still park your money in here and get investment and appreciation from the home while making interest only payments. And maybe you just do that for a while rates are really high, and then refinance and maybe put it into something like a rate and term later where it's not so bad. And you can start chipping away at the first mortgage. And sorry if you hear my dogs in the background. They are barking at something upstairs. And here we go. So this is for investing, for primaries, for seconds. The term that you've been hearing is date the rate. Buy the home, date the rate. And this is what makes this even more appealing, is you can buy the home and date the rate, and you can refinance later. We have the ability to waive our refinance fees. So if that's something that you're interested in, please talk to me about that. And I have to actually present you with this form. I realize the dates are totally out. We're well past April 30th. But I've already spoken to my branch manager. She is totally willing to honor this and help people refinance later if they do purchase with their first mortgage with us. So you can get those refinance fees waived. Generally, a refinance costs around $3,000. if there's not like a rate buy down. But yeah, so like literally, as long as you qualify, there's no excuse not to get into this housing market right now, because you can get the best of both worlds. You've got a reduced amount of competition with the rates going up right now. And as long as you qualify, it is the time to get in. That is the timing. So. And then just question and answers. And that's my contact information. So you're welcome to take a snapshot of that. It'll put it on your phone. You can share it. But yeah, do we have any questions, John, in the chat or anybody else?
I'm not sure. It booted me out, and then all the whatever responses we have in the chat box are no longer there, but let's see.
I don't see any questions in the chat box, but I have, actually I have a couple questions. When you said that refinance is generally like $3,000 or so, is that something you have to present cash in hand when you close on a refinance, or is that something that they roll into a loan?
Great question. If there's enough room in the refinance, based on the numbers that are trying to be accomplished, then yeah, it generally is rolled in.
That's awesome.
I don't know that I've ever had anyone want to bring money to the table. And I guess in all the scenarios of finance, it wasn't required that they bring anything to the table.
Awesome.
And it's awesome too, because then you'll remember back in the days when we used to do refinances, which was like 2021, because they pretty much dried up since then. The only thing kind of refinances that are happening right now are cash out refinances and doing debt consolidation, because the American people right now with inflation, they are using their credit cards. And those credit cards are racking up, and those credit cards are 25, 30%. Time to do a cash out refinance, roll it into your home, use it for the amazing tool that it is. But yeah, back in the day of just doing those rate and term refinances, you can almost basically count on being able to usually skip 2 months of mortgage with that. So that's a nice extra bonus that my clients were enjoying back in the days of 2021 and the amazing rates we had.
Yeah, absolutely. When someone does a refinance on a property that they own outright, do you still have to have the same income qualifications as if you were making a refinancing on something you owe payments
on? Would you have to qualify for the refinance just like you qualified for the purchase?
Yeah, income wise. Your house is your asset. How does that work?
Generally, there are some exceptions. There's like if you did an FHA loan for a purchase, and you wanted to drop the rate, and you were willing to go with another FHA loan on the refinance, there's something called a streamline FHA loan, where they don't take the debt to income ratio into account, knowing that it's putting that FHA borrower, if they lend to them again, they're actually lowering their payment. So they know they're putting them in a better situation. So that would be I guess an exception there. But if you're doing like a conventional, if you're going from FHA to a conventional loan with a refi, or you're doing conventional to a better rate conventional, you would have to qualify for the full thing, taking everything into account. Yeah. With that DSCR loan that I talked about earlier for investors, which has the ability to do a rate and term refinance, that one is, the rate and term would be similar to the purchase in that the investor's income is ignored. Yeah. Rental income is what qualifies you on that loan.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
Might be a good route for you, Amber.
Yeah, that's one thing too.
Yeah.
John, how flexible are sellers when it comes to some of these programs? Like Jen was talking about the 1%.
Can you guys hear me and see me? I'm having some issues, technical issues.
Yes, we can.
All right, I went onto my phone. They are definitely more receptive now than they would have been in like 2021, 2022,
Mhm.
which is really nice. I've had quite a few that, we can throw out the idea of let us offer you asking price, but you credit 10,000 back, or we'll offer you a little bit more, but we need some of it credited back to go to the lender to do the buy downs. I just think we're in a much better environment where people have a little more time to look over things, do the inspection, et cetera. But yeah, I think sellers are definitely more willing to look at what does it take to help young buyers with these high interest rates.
Yeah, awesome. That's great to hear.
That's really good to know. Amber, I'd love for you, could you talk a little bit more about what happened with this recent purchase you were telling us about right before we got onto the meeting?
Yeah.
Problem that you ran into with one of the carriers and not being willing to insure. That was really interesting.
Yeah, so I was grateful to receive a referral from John, whose client is purchasing a home in a mountain community. And as I was going through the underwriting process, there are several carriers now who use what they call like a sky view type thing. And it gives a real-time shot of a property. And when I was quoting the quotes, when it got to the underwriting portion, it said real-time data has been collected, underwriting review is needed. And so I was able to log into their system and to see what they look at. And I noticed there was a shadow of a tree on a roof. And so I thought, oh yeah, no problem at all. I'll just call and say, hey, that's a shadow. We need to get this taken off, clear this policy to be sold. Well, I am just a hopeful person because really what happened is they had noticed a large amount of debris on a neighboring property. And as a result of that, they have declined the new business on this policy. And it's because if this neighboring property were to catch fire, and it's again a mountain community, if it were to catch fire, it's highly likely that the neighboring property, her property, would also be, caught ablaze. So their underwriting protocols and stuff are really changing in insurance. It's a very interesting time for all of our professions in this house hacking and house hunting kind of thing, because there's so many different scenarios. The increased, mortgage rate, interest rates, the increased insurance, and the increased underwriting guidelines, and all those things for all of our professions, which make it interesting, but there are solutions. So we were able to get her into a policy with a quote that was able to be processed, and fingers crossed.
Yeah, mountain properties are really tricky right now in so many ways. And then I have a couple of properties in Florida, and it's getting very hard to insure properties there as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I do have a question. On those discounts that you were talking about for people to ask the seller to pay for them, there was the first one you said that was the most common one. That was one, you said something like 1/0, but then there were other ones that were like 2/1, 3/2/1. What is that?
So the 2/1 would be just like the 1/0 is a 1% discount for the first year. And then the second year goes to the 0.
Oh, okay.
Is a 2% discount. So instead of dealing with a 7% interest rate the first year, you're dealing with a 5% interest rate.
Oh,
Year it goes up to the 1. So then you're dealing with a 6% interest rate. And then the third year is when it goes to the par rate that was locked for the whole 30 year for that loan. And so it's a way you can actually kind of double up if you need to. You can, again, you can't use that number to qualify, like that temporary interest rate. You can't use it to qualify, but you can have a fixed rate buy down If you do a 30-year fixed rate buy down, permanent buy down, so instead of getting a 7%, you could get the 6.75. And that's that new par rate that it'll eventually kick in after the temporary buy down is no longer there. And so then that's your new standard for doing a 2-1 or doing a 3-2-1. And then after the 4th year is that par rate. If you do the 3-2-1.
Or at that point, could you look at redoing do a refinance at that point? Hopefully, maybe 3 years down the road, things are a little bit better.
Yeah, that's totally the plan, because like I was saying with the adjustable rate mortgage, those just aren't really. They aren't really available in the sense that there's not really a benefit with those in the market right now. So rather than doing an adjustable rate mortgage, do the 30-year and get a temporary buy down instead. And I usually recommend doing a temporary buy down instead of a fixed rate. I'm not encouraging people to do big 30-year fixed rate buy downs, because when you refinance, you lose the money. If you spent $15,000 on a permanent 30-year temporary, a 30-year permanent buy down, when you go to refinance in a couple of years, the money that you spent for the whole 30 years, you get to throw that, walk away from it and throw it away. So it's better to do something like this that's a temporary fix for what we know should be a temporary situation with the current.
And you say sellers are willing to do this in today's market?
Yeah, because really it doesn't change anything for them. If they're wanting 570,000 for a home, you can offer 580 with the idea that they're going to rebate back 10,000. Now you do have to make sure that house appraises for 580. But or what you can do is, if the home's been on the market for a while and the asking price is 570, and you say, instead of you guys reducing it and us offering you 560, we're going to offer you 570, but we want 10,000 back as a credit that goes right to the lender, and then the lender uses that to buy the rate down. I think it's a great program, and it's very creative in this environment where, so I tell my buyers, it's like, well, it doesn't make a lot of sense. If you just lower it $10,000, you're going to save a few dollars on your monthly payment. But if you can get that 10,000 as a credit, and all of that can be used to get like a 1% or more discount on your rate, it's like a significant amount of money over the 30-year mortgage. And as Genevieve said, the goal is not to even hold it for 30 years. It's just to like absorb, not what's the word I'm thinking of, to be able to absorb the blow of the high interest rate early on.
Mm-hmm. Yep, lock in the price. And temporarily fix the rate issue. So,
Marry the house, date the rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard that a lot lately.
I've never heard that.
Yeah,
Everything I watch about the housing market says that. Marry the house, not the rate.
yeah, it's funny when somebody will say it as though it's some original thing. It's like, I think I've heard that term quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, though prior to 2022, I don't think I'd ever heard it before. And now I hear it every day.
What's the old saying, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So all sorts of things come about when there's a huge need.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely been the case.
Well, this is really interesting, Jen, because it after hearing everything in the news and like, Jen, you know me, I don't really watch the news, but my husband's like a total news guy, and he's always telling me all these doom and gloom things and things about the housing market. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? But to hear that things are still to hear that things are still possible and there are real solutions is so reassuring. Because like I think about all the time, John, you had mentioned that, purchasing a house in a place like Sterling, Colorado is a great opportunity. And I can totally see why that's the truth, especially because you're only an hour, 2 hours away from all the amazing things in the city. I mean, really, when you think about it, that's not that far of a drive. That's not that much of an inconvenience or anything like that. So to purchase properties in those types of areas and to actually know that those things are possible is really exciting.
Yeah, there's all sorts of deals out there.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of, like with my buyers, what I'm constantly looking for are, you know, the repercussions of a seller and or their agent just pricing it too high. That's the worst thing you can do. I'm dealing with a potential seller right now, and it's a divorce situation, and both of them are way too high. So I'm trying to provide facts to them, but I'm just telling them if they put it too high, it will sit there. And that's the worst thing that can happen, because then you start lowering the price, and that's when people like me and the buyers come out like circling, like sharks, like circling the waters, right? I was just educating my son and his friend because they're thinking of buying a home. And I just said, that's the mentality you have to have. Just wait, because as soon as they lower that price, the psychology is, okay, well, now let's see how low they can go. So that's one thing you can do to get a good deal. The other thing is, I was just mentioning this to Jen the other day, because we put an offer in for a buyer and the listing agent immediately called Jen, and I said, wow, there's a listing agent that knows what he's doing. Because you'd be surprised how many times a buyer will submit an offer and it gets accepted, and the agent of the seller never called the lender, which to me is absurd, because there's so much you can learn about the buyers through talking to the lender. And I bring all that up because so many times a house goes under contract, and then you guys have probably seen it on Zillow or whatever, it'll go back on the market and the notes are, buyer financing fell through. Well, that's now another great opportunity for buyers, because that seller was expecting to be 1 to 2 weeks from closing, and all of a sudden they're starting all over again. And so that's when you can start going in and saying, hey, you're on the market for a while. And I'll say it tactfully, but it's like, how low will you go at this point? And they're much more motivated than when they first were on the market, because sometimes I'll have buyers who are like, can we bid low right away? It's like, no, they just went on the market. They're going to wait at least 2 to 3 weeks before they even consider going any lower. So I guess my point in all this is there's a lot of different ways to find good deals, as long as you don't like chase the squirrel of the one that everyone else is chasing. That's the huge thing to avoid, is like get onto that emotional viral bandwagon where it's like, I want this home so much. And by the way, so many other people do. And then you get into a bidding war, and there are still bidding wars if the home is nice, if it's priced right, and if it's to the point where the buyers know they just don't need to do anything to it. It needs to be really pristine. But if someone's willing to roll up their sleeves and do a little work on their own, like my son and his friend, there's plenty of good bargains out there.
Our daughter found that out.
Yeah. Yeah, we had quite the agent to deal with.
She just moved in after 3.5 months of rebuilding the place.
Yeah, this is my sister in Texas that I helped close in January, I think. She just got to move in.
Oh, I thought he was referring to you, because we had that a little bit as well.
Yeah. I mean, I fixed this
Yeah.
place up. I put about 40,000 into it, and I think it's now appreciated. I've got like 300,000 in equity in this place right now.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
place, that's the prime little place right now.
And there was
No,
another example of the agent was the owner, and he didn't do a very good job marketing, and he kept sitting on the market, and he kept thinking it was worth more. And I said, well, the market dictates what it's worth, and it's been sitting there for a while. So it's not worth what you think it is. It's worth what people are willing to bid on it. It's no different than a professional athlete. Like if Patrick Mahomes is just all of a sudden on the market, there's going to be a lot of teams paying an ungodly amount of money for him. There's no set price. And I think a home is a lot like that.
When I see homes sitting on the market for a long time, I automatically think something's wrong with them. Like, oh, these must not be passing inspection, like all those things really make me, or I think it's haunted. My mind automatically goes to it's haunted, so, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I did see that figure right behind you, so you might want to check that out, Amber.
Made me scared. This is the first house I've lived in that I'm not scared.
Ready.
No, but you bring up a great point, because one of the properties we bought in Thornton before I was an agent, my realtor was just talking just about that. He said it's the strangest thing. When it's brand new on the market, everyone thinks great things. When it comes back on the market, 99% of the time, there's nothing wrong with it, but everyone immediately thinks it's stigmatized, which is all the more reason why, from the seller's standpoint, you should be pricing it low and getting a bidding war and getting multiple choices and not being on the market very long. So I've seen some really good agents just tee things up perfectly as far as when they put it on the market, what price they put it on, what it looks like. Those little things make a huge difference.
Mhm.
So as a buyer's agent, we're looking for all the residuals of all the mistakes that were made by the selling agent.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and it's amazing how much really goes into being a seller's agent, because like the staging and stuff, looking through the listings that are in the Colorado market versus looking through the listings that are in the Nebraska market. You would be blown away by some of these houses, John. I'll have to send you some listings.
And then,
People laying
I
on,
think,
it's like, get off the bed. Your house is. But
for
yeah.
those that are thinking of investing, I'm really starting to think that Sterling is going to be a good area. I'm going to be steering a lot of buyers that way. Because I think the price points are pretty low and the rents are high. Greeley used to be like that, but it's changing fast.
Mhm.
That window is closing.
Do you have an opinion on Fort Morgan?
Fort Morgan is appreciated a lot. And Wiggins is like, because I used to coach football for Lions, and we used to go on that I-76 corridor, Akron, Fort Morgan, Brush. All those places were just like the sticks. And I followed, now that I've been a realtor and I have access to the database, it has been amazing. It's, people are just slowly moving away from the Denver area. That whole I-76 corridor has appreciated a lot because people now don't need to go to work every day, so they can afford to live farther out and get more for their money.
And the reality is the accommodations are so close. I mean, when you're thinking about an hour and a half away, it's interesting because, when I moved, far away, I thought, what am I going to do? But I just make a little drive and go into wherever I want to. So it's not bad at all. It's refreshing.
Interesting.
Hey, I didn't mean to ignore you. That's a great point, Amber, but I saw we just had a comment and I'm having a hard time finding it on my phone. Does anyone want to respond to that?
Yeah, I just thought, Paul, who is one of our attendees, texted that he was an idiot. Who is the idiot who didn't buy a place in Richardson when his kid chose UTD? Yep, that's me. Paul,
We all make mistakes, Paul.
my parents are the Art and Carol Miller attendees here, and they live in Richardson, and that's why I went to UTD. Are you in from Texas, Paul? Maybe he's typing a response.
Jeopardy.
Feel free to unmute yourself, Paul, if you'd like.
I'd be,
And originally from Tyler. Now in
oh my
Green-
gosh.
Oh, wow. Well, he hits home for a couple of us.
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
Paul,
Hello, hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is wonderful. It gives me so much to think about.
yeah, UTD. When did is your kid still going there, or did they graduate?
She just finished up, so I guess it would have been 2018 to 2022,
Oh, okay.
something like that. Poor thing was right in the middle of the lockdown and everything, so the college experience was a little wonky.
It was scary initially. I had my cousin was going to mines in Golden, and she had to pack up and go home. And
Burn up.
but she finally finished. She finally graduated. She survived. But Paul, so do you currently own a home in Greeley?
Yes, I'll try to give you the long story short. We've about 7 years ago, we bought a big combined home because I'm an immigrant's kid and we don't put our parents in a home. So we've got a way too big house for us, all paid off in Greeley. And then we found a home. We're going to have a couple of kids going to CSU. And we found a home over there, which will eventually be our retirement home. And so we've got a place here, and then we've got a rental property over there, and it's kept life interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. What are you gonna do with your big house now?
Maybe sell it in a year, likely sell it, yeah, but we'll have to figure out what kind of deal we can get, because I'm not going to spend a year fixing it up, and I don't know, we need less hassle than money, so.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah,
Jeff,
Sounds like
somebody
God
had-
needs
Awesome
to bring a
resource.
buyer there.
So Paul, one thing that, so one person I met at a networking group 2 weeks ago, instead of a professional stager, they're a professional organizer, and they help you to declutter and then use your own stuff with maybe a few accents here and there to like get your home as presentable as possible without breaking the bank. Cause like when you have a stager and they bring in their own furniture, it's really, really expensive.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people out there right now that are doing stuff that is cost effective.
yeah, I am all about that.
Any questions for us, Paul? You got an insurance, mortgage, a realtor person here?
I guess my only question would be, the rental that we bought in Fort Collins, when it comes time 2-3 years down the line to refinance, is it going to be difficult to get that refinanced to us as our primary residence, to go from a rental loan to a primary residence loan?
So you want to refinance a home that's currently been an investment property, and you want to refinance it, and you will be moving into it and making it your primary?
Yeah, that's my vision in like 2-3 years.
Shouldn't be an issue. We will just have to, I'd recommend basically already making that transition before you refinance, because they're gonna,
Right. Yeah, that was my plan. I don't do any shenanigans with anything federal attached to it. You know,
not worth all that jail time.
right.
I'd rather live in that house. Yeah. Yeah, it shouldn't be an issue as long as we're able to, prove everything. I mean, I've had it before where a guy told me he wanted to refinance his home that he bought here in Colorado. So we did everything. We got it all underwritten and everything. The appraiser went out. And then there was this little thing on the appraisal that said that he talked to the tenant about their lease. And the underwriter was like, well, why is there a tenant in there? Blew up the whole thing. Like, dude, you're not living there. You're living in North Carolina. I'm not gonna lose my license over this. So, yeah, so it does happen. But I'm glad you're one of the trustworthy ones. Because
I try to be.
yeah, no, there shouldn't be an issue as long, because they're gonna want to see like your tax returns are going there, and it doesn't have to like the address doesn't, on the tax returns, doesn't already have to, you don't have to wait for yourself to file taxes to be able to claim that as your primary. It would have to be explained, you know, like, oh, well, they just sold their home. You know, we can see a settlement agreement from that, from the sale of their home. They're moving into this one. They've already done the change of address. You know, we've got utilities now in their name. It's going to the same address. Things like that are ways to prove that it is your primary and that it can be refinanced as a primary. Great question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Amber,
Do we have any other questions or shall we wrap it up, guys?
yeah, let's do the PPT showing next week's, in 2 weeks, the topic.
Perfect. So our next meeting will be on Tuesday, July 25th, which I cannot even believe I'm saying, at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Our presenter will be our very own John. Our topic is going to be cracking the housing market, unveiling trends, pricing, and conditions for buyers. If you would please RSVP for the meeting through Meetup. We'll have a new Zoom link available for that. Please be sure to check out our Facebook group, and you can rewatch and share today's video at House Hunting Hacking on YouTube, which is a great platform to check us out on. Please feel free to share our information with anyone that you know who's interested in the topics that we're discussing. And we really appreciate you guys all joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks.